Hi, and welcome to today's video in which we will be talking about how to manage unrealistic project expectations. I'm going to cover some of the challenges that are caused due to unrealistic expectations and some of the psychology and sources of expectation that push us to set these unrealistic expectations within our project. Some of the challenges you're going to face, and realistically, we'll also cover what consequences of setting those unrealistic goals will have on your end delivery. I'm going to go into a bit of detail about communication strategies and some real world expectations that you can set could support your project moving forward. And then finally, there's some tips at the end regarding how you can best manage your everyday projects to make sure that you are managing people's expectations, but keeping it real at the same time. The first topic is the challenge of unrealistic expectations. Now, one of the things I will say is that there are multiple pressures that will push you into scenarios. Here are a few that will push you to set unrealistic expectations and how best you can stop yourself from falling into that trap. So firstly is project expectations as a benchmark. Now, previous projects may have a certain expectation that you were able to deliver X, Y, and Z within the time. Now, every project is unique. Having a benchmark is a guide. Every project has different challenges, different environments that you work in, different people. Therefore, your time delivery will vary depending on the people or teams or the market influences that you have. Next one is being too optimistic. Now, the tendency is sometimes a lot of project managers I've worked with in the past, yes, we'll get it done and we will always meet the deadline, etc., and try to be the salesperson. You are not a salesperson. You are there to be real and set clear expectations. Now, here, you want to be positive. I get it, but you must understand that by overpromising and under-delivering, you are setting the bar for failure here. You will most likely fail on your delivery. However, be realistic after assessing your tasks, etc., and setting a realistic time goal that you can achieve means there's a greater chance of success. Again, is high performing previous projects. Now, if you've had projects which have performed really well and you've done really well and everything's all aligned, that could set the benchmark of this is how the timeline will be met. And this is how you're going to get there. Now, the danger here is that it's not accurate. Like I said before, there are many factors that could influence and change the way your project is managed. And as the project is different, it will have different challenges. So past projects are really not a reference point. It creates unrealistic expectations for future endeavors. And that is really dangerous, where people assume that because you delivered project A out within 3 months, that the next project you should be able to deliver in 3 months. And that is an opportunity to set yourself for failure, which is not very good. Now, another one that really sets unexpected or unrealistic expectations is market demands. Now, pressure to meet or exceed market expectations can result in setting unrealistic goals so you stay competitive. So we're gonna deliver this product by within 3 months ahead of our competition. However, that has a negative impact because you might have to cut corners. You might have to take shortcuts in areas that you shouldn't be doing. So when you deliver the end project, that there is actually an inferior project against your competitors. It's the balance between delivering quickly and meeting people's expectation and delivering something of quality that adds value to the business. Really, what the key here is understanding the source of unrealistic expectation is crucial for setting achievable goals and managing your stakeholders' perceptions in project management. So if you understand what is feeding into those unexpected or unrealistic expectations, then you will be able to manage the individual stakeholder as you need and steer them in the right way. And as a project manager, you need to be steering the project after taking everybody's input and not simply saying it will be achieved, hoping that it gets done. You have to be realistic and set expectation of what is achievable, not what you think is achievable. Next is what is the sources of expectation. Now, One of the main one is an individual within your stakeholders being too optimistic. It's like where somebody says, oh yeah, we can achieve this. They're happy. They're really excited about the project and we will achieve this. Now that excitement in reality isn't good. However, what it does is that it misses the whole picture and you're not thinking about all the risks, all the people that you need, all the supplies that you might need to deliver your project. And because in your excitement that you actually say you will achieve the project in X number of days or months or whatever it may be, which then sets an expectation with your stakeholders. Now, first thing first in the project, do not commit to a timeline unless you've had the opportunity to review your project and really understand what is required to be done, how long it will take, and who needs to do it, and do you have all the resources in place. Once you've done your initial groundwork, then set yourself a goal. Remember, being optimistic is not bad, but you have to be real about how optimistic you are. Another one is that forces unrealistic expectations within your project is, again, how past projects can create a false sense of confidence. Now, this is in many cases, I've done multiple projects within a customer site and they said, yeah, we did really well last time. We managed to deliver it in 3 months, but you have to understand and evaluate that each project is different. Each project has different targets, goals, and people. Each project has different requirements and potential challenges and risks on what you are delivering. Therefore, using a past project as a baseline is not necessarily always accurate. You can use it as a baseline and potentially just say, okay, this is what we should aim for. However, after you've done your assessment, like I said, is to make sure that you are setting the correct expectation and taking into account risk that is associated with that project. Next is stakeholder pressure. Now, as a seasoned project manager, I have had so many stakeholders tell me we must deliver it by this and this time. We must get it done, and are trying to influence because they have somebody above them. They are accountable. However, as a project manager, you need to be realistic about your delivery, because if it fails, it's your head that's on the chopping board and you are ultimately accountable. So yes, there is stakeholder pressure. It's how you manage those stakeholders and making sure that you are listening to them, understanding why they put pressure on, and then kicking back and saying, actually, let me assess it. Let me understand the risk. Let me understand what the whole picture is, and then come back with a commitment. Do not feel that you have to answer your stakeholders immediately. Go away and think about it, and then come back with a realistic timeline or delivery target that you think you can achieve. And finally, in every business, there are market demands. Now, there are competitive market pressures that will cause pressures like within your industry that can drive, or we must deliver. If you're a car manufacturer and you're competing to be the best, let's use the electric car market as industry. Tesla was leading the way. Other car manufacturers were pushing hard to get ahead of the game. In some cases, many manufacturers delivered the inferior products. However, other manufacturers delivered quality products. So that is the key between, you may have a market demand, but assessing whether you want to deliver something that's of good value and actually helps your business grow, or deliver something just gets you into the market. So one of the things we need to talk about is, what are the consequences of setting unrealistic goals? Now, one of those is unrealistic goals and expectations within your project will lead to your project being derailed. And the consequences are such as increases stress levels within your project. You get employee burnout, compromised quality, scope creep, budget overruns. All those things will have a domino effect on your project. So these negative outcomes can significantly impact the success and, in the end, affect the quality of what you deliver. So, impact of setting unrealistic goals within your project is really, really key. If somebody says you can do it in 2 months, really assess and understand how you can do those. Now, in a bit, next slide, I'm going to cover some of the things that you could do to assess it. But I have to stress, as a project manager, your job is to go out there and make sure that you are being realistic in regards to how you can deliver a project. Now, it does sometimes require you telling people bad news. And as a project manager, you're not going to give good news all the time. You will be forced into positions where you will have to give bad news because you've now understood the whole picture and you understand the knock-on effect of what you are asking for. Again, setting unrealistic goals would require, in many of my projects where seen this happen, is you will then end up being change control king or queen in regards to how you process this, because you will end up constantly having changes in, because if your project is managed with proper change, you've set the expectation, you are then saying, okay, well, we're delayed because of this, we need more budget, we need more resource, we need more of that. And in consequence, it comes an admin overhead that you really don't want. So understand the consequences of having unrealistic goals is really, really important. Remember, it will affect your team, it will compromise your quality, and it will compromise the team morale and your overall budget on delivery. So one of the things we need to talk about is what are the consequences of setting unrealistic goals. Now, one of those is unrealistic goals and expectations within your project will lead to your project being derailed. And the consequences are such as increases stress levels within your project, which as a project manager, you really don't want to do. You get employee burnout, compromised quality, scope creep, budget overruns. All those things will have a domino effect on your project. So, these negative outcomes can significantly impact the success and in the end, affect the quality of what you deliver. So, impact of setting unrealistic goals within your project is really, really key. The next slide, I'm going to cover in a bit more detail some of the things that you could do to assess risk, but I have to stress, as a project manager, your job is to go out there and make sure that you are being as realistic as possible in regards to how you can deliver a project. Now, it does sometimes require you telling people bad news. You will be forced into positions where you will have to give bad news, because by assessing the risk, by assessing the ask, you've now understood the whole picture and you understand the knock-on effect of what you are asking for. And setting unrealistic goals would require, in many of my projects where I've seen this happen, is you will then end up being change control king or queen in regards to how you process this, because you will end up constantly having changes in, because if your project is managed with proper change, you've set the expectation, you are then saying, okay, well, we're delayed because of this, we need more budget, we need more resource, we need more of that. And in consequence, it comes an admin overhead that you really don't want. Understand the consequences of having unrealistic goals is really, really important. But it will affect your team, it will compromise your quality, it will compromise the scope that you deliver, and it will compromise the team morale and your overall budget on delivery. So next is, how do you set or achieving goals? Now, one of the things as a project manager you should do first is break down your goals into manageable tasks. As an individual, you need to understand that, especially me as a project manager, I need to break things down in smaller chunks so I can understand the whole picture in a bit more detail and then understand what those individual tasks require. So divide larger goals into smaller goals, action, put the steps in, understand what they are, understand the risk, and then start tracking those activities. By doing that, you will make sure that you have a clear picture of what you are delivering and understand the full impact of what you're doing and its dependencies through the project. Next is define SMART goals. The goals which are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. By setting clear goals which are quantifiable, measurable, will mean that you are actually able to track and monitor the progress of your project. And that is really important. If you can't monetize in some respects of what that project, what that delivery means and the activities, and look at those and then assess, oh, this is the outcome, this is what I'm doing. I can measure that. I'm saying, okay, it was 10 days. Now I've delivered it in 8, or I'm overrun by 2. All those are things you need to be able to quantify in some measurable format. And setting SMART goals allows you to do that. Next is prioritize and focus efforts. Now, concentrate your resources on the most critical goals and avoiding unnecessary distractions and overextending. The key here is to set your team clear goals and say, guys, focus on this for now. This is what we need to be doing this week. It focuses the mind and it stops people from deviating from what they should be doing. Now, that's really important because that when they deviate and they start doing other things that they shouldn't be doing, what it does is it indirectly derail your project's progress. Now, you will get these characters within your project who will decide to say, okay, I'm working on actually, I quite fancy doing that. And with techies, you'll find this a lot if you are working in a technical environment, because what they enjoy is getting into the technical side of things. Now, as a project manager, you will need to manage those individuals to make sure that they stay focused and you keep that flow moving towards succeeding your project. And one of the things is making sure you have good communication as part of that engagement with your stakeholders. Next is embrace flexibility and adaptability. Now here, as a project manager, be willing to adjust goals and circumstances change to balance your project and set realistic constraints around what you are doing now. By willing to be flexible, what you mean by that is not simply saying yes to everything, but actually listening to people, getting the information, and then saying, actually, that's a good idea. Let's do it and let's apply it to the project. By which, when I said you've done the assessment, you've understand the risk, you understand any cost impact and any delays, and you are making a decision based on as much information that you have at the time. Don't forget, information coming later down the line would probably give you a different decision, but with the information you have at the time, you've got to make a decision then. And the next one is celebrate incremental progress. Now, one thing a lot of project managers do is that they're so busy running around doing stuff and trying to get people think is that they forget to recognize the small achievements within your project. When you've achieved those goals, acknowledge people, do what you actually say, this is what you should be doing. Give people good, positive feedback. That stimulates good teamwork and recognition as a human individual. Being recognized for something naturally uplifts people's persona and makes them more focused towards your needs that help you deliver your project. So remember, celebrating those small wins is really key here. So next, let's talk about communication. Now, one of the things about managing expectations within your project is good communication with your stakeholders. I'm going to quote something from George Bernard Shaw. He says here that the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Now, many project managers will make the assumption that people understand. Never do that. Make sure that you are clear with your communication and that you are always communicating with the right people. And I would say one of the top skills you need to have as a project manager is your ability to communicate. Be really focused and really understand who you need to talk to, when you need to talk to, how you need to talk to. Your communication style needs to be tailored to individuals. You need to understand the frequency. You need to understand the methods of how you communicate via email, face-to-face, over Teams, whatever it may be. You need to tailor that communication. People who are part of your project delivery understand and get a clear message. Now, sometimes I fall foul of this where I'm rushing at 100 miles an hour within my project. I'm trying to get things done. Take a breather, slow down, and actually try to look through your stakeholders' eyes and see whether what you are saying and doing is relevant to them. If not, do a one-to-one session and then tailor your communication as required. Communication is so important as part of delivering a project. Sending the wrong message will have an impact on the delivery of your project and derail your project. So remember, communicating with your individuals is such a key role. So here are some tips from me on how you can manage expectations within your project. Step one is provide realistic time estimates based on historical data. Now that's the first step, really get information, put your Gantt chart together, understand who's doing what, and then take it and then create your initial plan. Secondly, some tips you take is really learn to politely decline unreasonable requests. Now, as a project manager, you can say no. And this is one of the things Being a yes person is not your job. Your job is to deliver the project. And sometimes you have to say no. And sometimes it upsets the stakeholder, fine, because they don't get their way. But if you conduct it correctly, you will get their buy-in, because what you are assessing that risk and make all that request and making the right decision. Next is every decision you get, conduct risk assessments and create contingency plans. Risk assessment is key. You must do is without understanding the risk of the request or the change within your project, or somebody saying, oh, you must deliver within 3-4 days earlier. What is the impact of that? What qualities are, and then address that with the individual. Next is have regular updates with your stakeholders on project progress. By having those regular updates, you're able to assess where you are, what you're achieving, what your delays are, what your impact is, what risks you have. That again will then give a clear picture to your stakeholders, or especially at senior level, that, okay, this is what we need to do, and these are the priorities. We can't afford to delay. We can't afford this. We can't afford that, or we can delay this because of X, Y, and Z. Have those clear, regular discussions with your project team and stakeholders, so that people understand where they are, and then in that communication, you will update. You will have them feeding you information, which will help you make decisions. Number 5 is set clear and measurable objectives from the start. Setting something ambiguous is going to set you up for failure. Try to set goals that are, like we said, smart goals, which you can measure, which are quantifiable, which you can track. So those are really key. Set clear and measurable objectives as a key one. Next is prioritize tasks that focus on crucial deliveries. Now you've got to focus on, there's loads of activities, but which are your key activities, and you must focus the team so that they get those activities done. And finally, encourage open communication and feedback loops. Now, in every one of my videos, communication comes up, stakeholder management comes up, all those things are common within project management. So make sure you encourage open communication and feedback. Have that good relationship with your stakeholders. If you don't, it's really difficult. Yes, it's going to be difficult sometimes when you speak to your stakeholders, but that's why you as a project manager are there to set realistic goals and not constantly say yes, because ultimately, if you are a yes person, you will fail your project. So overall, using these 7 tips, these will help you progress forward. As a project manager, what tools do you have out there that could help you manage expectations? Now, I'm going to cover a very few, not in too much detail, but firstly, a Gantt chart. Now, in any project I've done, creating a nice detailed Gantt chart is really helpful. Helps you picture the overall project, helps you understand who's doing what, when, helps you foresee what you are doing. And because if you do it right and you link things, you create your dependencies, create your milestones within your project Gantt chart. If something changes, you could see the knock-on impact, which you can communicate to your stakeholders and say, actually, if we delay by a week, this is the impact. If we achieve things get done quicker, this is what we achieve, and this is how much saving we have, etc. But that's really key. Next one is data analytics. Using data around you to see what's going on is really helpful. Next one is interactive check-ins. So when you have interactive check-ins with people, you are just touching base with people. How are you getting on? How's the work going? Just having a quick 5-minute conversation over Teams or face-to-face. Those are really important check-ins, because sometimes people could have their head buried getting stuff done. If you just touch base and, what's your progress? And I just did this on my previous project where we are having equipment build, and I touch base on a regular basis. Can we just meet up 15 minutes? First day we met, we were like, okay, we're not achieving our target. I then reiterated this expectation, say, guys, we need to get this done because of X, Y, and Z. The risk of not getting done is that we won't be able to achieve our delivery. That there's a cost impact. The next day when we touch base, we're like, actually, we've managed to get more work done, and we're now ahead of schedule, and we should have everything done the day before. So in respect, we're touching base, you can push things forward and then keep your expectations aligned, or you can understand if your expectations that were set are going to be deliverable or not, and you can measure those. So finally, a few takeaways from me in regards to the key points I feel you need to take as a project manager so that you set realistic expectations? Firstly, be realistic about your goals. Do not be over enthusiastic about the goals. Be realistic in your time management and the resources. Build some contingency and then set the time expectation. By being realistic, you are then actually setting yourself up for success. That is the key as part of project management. Next is, don't be afraid to say no. When somebody is putting peer pressure on you, somebody's asking you to, set expectations because they want to look good. Remember, you are ultimately accountable. So don't be afraid to say no. If you have done your assessment and you feel what they're asking is beyond our reach and is setting expectations that are unachievable, so do not be afraid to say no. Next is communicate. Keep touching base with all your stakeholders. Keep engaged with the people doing work so that you are constantly getting feedback, constantly updating. Now, I stress there's the balance between not doing enough communication to doing too much communication. So that's really key. And finally is always assess the risk and impact of anything, any expectations that customers are asking you to set, saying those goals are going to change because of X, Y, and Z. What is the impact? How much time will it cost and effort? Once you understand the risk and impact, you are better to able to articulate and set those realistic goals. So thank you for listening today. That concludes the video. I hope you found that helpful. Please subscribe and leave your comments below. Thank you.